smokes, folks, and welcome back to Raining Cats and Dogs. It is very great to have you guys back. As always, I am your host, Henry Jansen, sports writer for the Kirksville Daily Express, and I hesitate a little bit to call this season 2 of our program because you know how with sports, how the way those go. Ultimately, you look at fall, winter, and spring, and now back to fall. You could almost look at it as season 4. But here we are, and sports are underway. This evening, we will have with us both head football coaches. First, we will have Kellen Nesbitt, head football coach of Truman State University, and later on, we will have Bruce Munden in his first year at the helm at Kirksville High. First and foremost, before we get underway with those two, I want to tell you guys about a handful of things that are going on over the course of this week as this airs between now and Saturday, because we have kind of a loaded slate. On the Kirksville side, Austin Sykes and his cross-country team will head for Albia, Iowa on Thursday. That same evening, we will have 2 Kirksville home games. Kirksville soccer, the Kirksville boys soccer team, opens with Southern Boone at Spainhauer Field. That varsity game is slated for 6:30. Missy Dempsey and her Kirksville volleyball girls are slated to open for a varsity matchup versus Hallsville at 6:30 on that same evening. But JV is scheduled for 5, and volleyball tends to get ahead a little bit. So if you want to go out and catch that one, maybe a little bit earlier than 6:30 is your best bet. Truman is calling this opening week of athletics their Student and Community Appreciation Week, and they likewise have a loaded slate. The only thing that will be on the road for the Dogs is Coach Gannon's volleyball team will be at a 4-team, kind of a not a tournament, but get some games in at Fort Hays, and that'll be between Thursday and Saturday, 4 games across 3 days. Otherwise, Thursday, we have a soccer doubleheader. The women will play Davenport at 5 p.m., immediately followed by a men's game versus St. Cloud State at 7:30. That's on Thursday night out at Stokes Stadium. On Saturday afternoon, before we get to a 6 p.m. football game, also at Stokes, the women will play at the Bulldogs soccer pitch for the first time in quite some time. Any of those events that pique your interest, feel free to head on out. Student Community Appreciation Week for the Dogs all week. But with us here, our first guest of the season, friend of the show, and reigning GLVC Coach of the Year, Kellen Nesbitt. Kellen, very good to have you.
Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Good to be back as well. Good to be back for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit before we get into it. Just talk a little bit about summer, a little bit about ramping up toward the first game of the season.
Yeah, it's been a good summer. Everything at the Division II level in terms of what we're doing here in Kirksville is always voluntary. So you've got guys that are in town working summer jobs and training with our strength conditioning coach, Coach Jeremy Dockery. And then you've got some guys working internships that are kind of scattered around at different places. And then we all reconvene, in early August. But I was pretty pleased, as we got back in town. When I was pleased with the guys who were here. Definitely got a lot of good work done. Got stronger, got faster, moved the needle, from that standpoint. So really happy with the work ethic and the commitment. And then for the guys that were in internships or were home, for periods of time, we seem to have reported back in really good shape. And I just think the overall commitment level I was very pleased with, and then really, again, pleased with Coach Doc and what he was able to do with the guys that were here in town. So since then, we started on, August 4th, I think we reported, and we've been practicing ever since, kind of gearing up and getting ready for this weekend.
Excellent. And just talk a little bit about trajectory in general before we get into some other stuff. 2 years ago, your first year under the helm, a victory in the America's Crossroads Bowl. And then this past season, the Bulldogs' first appearance in the NCAA Division II playoffs since 1994. Kind of talk about that upward trajectory under the Kellen Nesbitt regime.
I would say it's been a building process for quite some time. If you follow Bulldog football, we've been knocking on the door. That was our 4th Crossroads Bowl in 5 years. We'd been right there, kind of finishing just on the outside looking in those regional rankings, and kind of found a way. The right teams lost week 11 last year. We won on that last game. We were kind of on the outside looking in, and found a way in, and it was certainly a pretty cool experience, and feels like forever ago now. We've turned the page, certainly, but it was an awesome season, for sure, and really proud of the whole organization, and then all the Bulldogs before that, and everybody that's helped kind of laid this this groundwork and this process of just building the culture and building the right mindset has certainly been not just a 1-year deal. It's been building over time. So I'm just proud to be part of it.
And to that point, something you and I have talked about. Talk about a little bit how you now have an established continuity with your staff after things have been in limbo the past couple of seasons. What, from a staffing perspective, what that looks like for a head coach.
Yeah, I think it's been really good. I mean, it's such a big deal. Continuity on your systems of offense and defense and kicking game, and really since I became the head coach and Coach Austin Zoda came in as the offensive coordinator, we've had the same offensive and defensive system. Certainly, you tweak year to year, but you've had the same offensive and defensive system for 3 consecutive years. Same starting quarterback for 3 consecutive years. A good nucleus of our offensive linemen for 3 consecutive years. So it's not just coaching continuity at this point. We've got experience, particularly on the offensive side of the football right now. So it can't be understated what that I guess how that shows up, once you're out on the field playing. So.
And before we talk about, the season as a big picture, I know that right now on the forefront of your mind is 1 week at a time. Washburn this year was a tough one last year on the road. Dogs kind of had control, scored first, and a fumble kind of changed the entire trajectory of that game. And it just not necessarily slipped away from you, but just kind of felt like one possession at a time. It got further and further away. And this is a team that you know well. Just talk about what this Saturday evening is going to look like.
Well, last year was a good football game. 2 fairly evenly matched teams. It was a good game. There was some parts of the game we certainly wish we could rewind the clock and have played better, and that's the fun part about kind of reloading it and doing it again this year. And each season's unique. They've got a lot of new players, same coordinators just like us, so I imagine it'll look similar in terms of what the style of play on offense and defense by both teams, but each season unique. Each club is unique, so it'll be interesting to see how both programs have progressed, since, a calendar year ago, from that standpoint. But we're excited to play. I think the coaches and the roster, everybody's been working really, really hard. And at some point, you got to go test yourself. You got to go see where you're at. We've been practicing. It's time to go see another opponent and kind of see where we're at.
I know it's a week 1 game, but does that give your guys a little bit of extra juice to be playing this game at home under the lights once the second half rolls around, versus an afternoon game last year in Washburn? Just all of those factors, does that give you guys some energy?
I think it will. I think when you get 11 college football games this season, and those aren't even guaranteed, when it comes to injury and all that kind of stuff, I think for the most part, you end up getting pretty excited. No matter where you're playing, you'd be playing in a parking lot at 9 a.m. And if it's one of those 11, you're kind of fired up to get out there and get going. But being at home, being in front of our people, our home crowd, being here in Kirksville, being at Stokes, where we practice every day, being under the lights, I do think all that's going to add to the environment for sure. It'll be a long Saturday. You don't think about that, but we'll be sitting around, coaches, players, all of us. So hopefully we don't burn up all our anxiety and energy during the day waiting for that night kick, but it'll be fun once we finally get to kick that off. We'll certainly be fired up.
You, from a coaching perspective, as we are sitting here recording this on Monday night, what does the remainder of the week of practice look like, especially as you mentioned with the game being a later one on Saturday evening? What does between now and kickoff look like?
We're sticking with our kind of normal in-season game routines. Each practice kind of builds on the practice before. You kind of start with an early down or, first and second down game plan type of thought process. And then you add in kind of some third downs, then you move into red zones by your third practice. So you're just kind of getting your situational plans in with each day. And then by your fourth practice, you're kind of putting it all together and maybe working a couple other special situations, as well as all those kicking game plans and all that. So we're fully into our routine now and kind of settling into it, and just got done with practice, just walked in off the practice field, and got done with practice 1 and start turning the page and looking at some third downs tonight.
In the grand scheme of things, look ahead just to the season a little bit. Returning 17 starters, correct?
Mm-hmm.
2 of those starters that you lose are obviously huge, one on offense and one on defense. When we talk about Spalding and Cook, but as you've said in the past, this is the nature of college football, is next man up.
Yeah, it's just every season, every year you lose. There's always going to be some good players, on every single roster that are seniors or in this era that you lose to the portal from time to time, and then. But it always creates opportunities, every year over the years, it creates opportunities for for new players, for guys that are paying the price and putting that sweat equity in, on a year-round standpoint. So I'm excited to see some new faces get their opportunity and get to play and see how they perform. And then obviously some of the familiar faces as well, as we've got quite a few guys that, like you mentioned, that have been starters or played significant roles for us last year and previous seasons.
One thing that I think that the outside community is kind of excited about, and I don't know how you guys look at it as a coaching staff, you guys lose 17 touchdowns and 1,400 yards of rushing production with the loss of Denham Cook and Elijah Stevens, but you bring back Krupa, Ryan Ross you're excited about.
Ross at guard, Wyatt Bonnet at center, Ryan Hall and Mikey Barretto at guards, and Oliver Sevig, at a tackle, and then Nolan Glaus at another kind of tackle guard that played significant for us. So there's a lot of experience. That's a good place to have experience on your offensive line for sure. So those guys got a lot of synergy right now, and I feel confident they'll play well here in the opener.
Talk a little bit just in depth about those guys. You lose your everything back and a crucial piece behind him, but you bring back such an experienced offensive line. As you say, that's a great place to start. Talk about those guys a little bit.
Well, I think they're built to run the football. At least we hope so. We're going to find out here on Saturday. So I think those guys, their physicality and their experience hopefully will shine for us when we get out there on the field. And then you've got a quarterback that is going to add in his fair share of rushing yards, a very talented ball carrier himself, and he'll demand his fair share of attention, with some of the option and the scheme stuff, that Coach Zota has the guys doing. And then we think we've got two good young backs. Tommy Pulliam was a first team all-league kick returner, I believe, last year, an all-league kick returner. I think he was first team all-league. So he's shown the ability to make plays with the ball in his hands, and he was just waiting his turn. And then another young player at Madden Irving that's ready to go and got a little bit of experience last year. So we're excited for those two. And then there's 8 running backs, and all those guys were excellent players at their individual high schools. You got all 8 of them are 1,000-yard rushers wherever they came from, and they're all itching to get their opportunities and get some touches and show what they can do.
While we stick on the offensive side, a lot of turnover in the tight ends room. I know that you're very excited about the wide receiver room. Talk about some of these weapons that Harrah will have at his disposal, as well as how good of these blockers some of these guys are.
Well, the wide receiver room is really deep. One of the deeper, probably wideout segments we've had. You've got Nate Ryans returning, was a second-team all-conference player last year. You've got Jackson Overton, was freshman player of the year in the GLVC 2 years ago. And then you've got Adam Hall and Kel Battle out there, outside receiver. Jalen Kent right here from Kirksville had a great season for us as a slot receiver, punt returner. Then you've got Kai Crow, Luke Allen, and Michael Burden, 3 younger players that haven't gotten as much field time yet, but are all ready, and then a couple good freshmen, that we've added in. So it's a deep room, a lot of guys, and it's an exciting part. Zodes is doing a really good job finding different ways to package everybody in, trying to find ways to keep everybody engaged. That's tough when you have that much depth. You want to keep all those guys happy, and usually only playing 3 or 4 wideouts, but we'll get them all out there in rotation. They'll all get their opportunities, and I think a lot of them will find ways to make plays.
Last year, we've talked about it a number of times. I think we've even talked about it on this program, is one week just based on game flow. It might be Gruey week, who you guys, of course, lost to the transfer portal, or it might be Overton week, or it might just be somebody's day.
Right.
Do you still have that kind of chemistry where on any given day it can be whoever's?
Yes. It'll be a new season, so you'll have to kind of rebuild that. But some of that comes in. You really got to give a lot of credit to Dylan, our quarterback, and his ability to point guard an offense and take what the defense gives you. You got to give a lot of credit to Coach Zota and the plan that those guys put together on a weekly basis. And then you just can't say enough. It's uncommon how unselfish those guys can be, how team-oriented. I'm talking the receivers particular, because if anybody's been around football, that can inherently be a bit of a selfish position, wide receivers that want the ball. But our guys have been team first, finding ways to win is the most important thing, whether that's being elite blockers on the perimeter, whether that's a day where you do, like you said, it ends up being their day based on the game plan or how a defense chooses to defend us. All those factors come into play. So I just couldn't be prouder of their team first attitude. And then when they get their opportunities, they get the chance to shine. And that's always fun to see too.
talking about the wide receiver room a little bit, kind of stereotype is the kind of what you're hitting on, the diva aspect. I mean, there's always going to be egos. There's always going to be egos, but like you say, you have a senior leader at quarterback who is very capable of keeping these guys in check. Talk about that kind of unity, especially when we're talking about eight plus guys.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a fine line because you want wide receivers that want the ball, that want to make an impact. So you don't want them to be too passive, but the team, as long as the team's always first, and finding a way to be successful collectively is always at the forefront, you've got a chance. And that's what those guys have done a great job of, is keeping the main thing, trying to find a way to strain and win together. And some days that means we get a lot of catches and a lot of yards, and some days it doesn't work out that way. But I think they have belief in Coach Zoda. They got belief in Dylan. They got belief in Coach Glass. They know that we believe in them. And when the time comes, we got a lot of guys that can be ready to impact the game and help us win.
It's very exciting, Coach. This has the potential to be one of the most electric Bulldog offenses we've seen in a long time in the passing game. Take me to the defensive side of the football a little bit. I know that everybody is very excited to see what Jack Weltha, your senior leader on defense, right there in the heart of it with losing Thomas Spalding. Jack Weltha stepping in as a senior to kind of point guard the defense, so to speak. What is the defensive side of the ball going to look like? Your bread and butter.
Well, there's going to be a lot of new faces. We have a little more turnover, on that side. Jack will be a headliner coming back as a returning first-team All-League, kind of middle linebacker for us. The linebacker position in general has good experience. You've got Logan Montoya returning after starting last year. You've got Elijah Fry, who's been a full-time starter for us. So you've got three kind of level 2 linebackers that have all played and have really good experience. And then up front, you've got Tucker McDowell back, who had a really good year for us as an edge. And then in the middle of the defense, Gavin McDaniel, who played quite a bit for us in rotation as an interior, and now will kind of elevate into a full-blown starter role. And in the middle is kind of the anchor of our D-line in there. So you've got some experience. Then there'll be some new faces to look out for this year. I mean, 5 new starters in the secondary, a couple new starters on the defensive line. It'll be some new faces, but some talented kids that are, just like we talked about with the running backs, that are kind of ready and have been putting that sweat equity in. So hopefully they'll get excited to play well, and I imagine they will.
Just some off-season stuff. We got some transfers coming into the Bulldog program who I know the coaching staff is a little bit excited about, in addition to traditional recruits. And it's almost, saying traditional recruits as we enter the 2026 season, now that the transfer portal is so wide open, is almost a weird thing to say.
Right.
But talk a little bit about some of these transfers that you're bringing in and what you think they can bring you day one.
Well, we tried to address the secondary. Didn't play as well as we have been accustomed to last year in general. And then you had some turnover, in the secondary. So we had some immediate need back there. So we brought in 2 transfers. Idrick Carmichael, who we recruited out of junior college, didn't get. He signed at the University of North Dakota, but kind of fell out of rotation for them, wasn't getting kind of the reps. And we had that relationship pre-built, from recruiting him out of the junior college. So he signed with us last January, and we've had him now for an entire spring practice and an entire fall camp. So we feel really good that he's ready to roll. And then we signed another junior college kid from California, DJ Richmond, who's going to play a role for us as well as a corner. So those 2 transfers are certainly helping us out and bolstering a secondary. And then we had Maddox Alfutes, on roster last year. And as the season kind of progressed, he ended up playing a bigger and bigger role for us. And, in that playoff game that didn't go the way we wanted, he was certainly one of the bright spots for us. He played a really, really good game in a big environment and has kind of used that momentum into his offseason. So we expect him to play a much bigger role for us. So hopefully those corners are ready to roll. And then another transfer we brought in is a Skia bully from College of DuPage, and he's going to be a quarterback for us, kind of backing up Dylan. But he's athletic, very, very athletic, and Zodes is using him in some creative ways. It'll be interesting to see how he gets utilized as kind of a number 2 quarterback, kind of a gadget guy that can play some receiver, and very electric athlete. So we're excited to kind of unveil him, this season as he gets out there and just adds into that group of weapons that we have.
just personnel-wise across the board. Hit on some of these guys who we haven't mentioned yet. Hit on some of these guys who had some great summers and you really are anticipating make that next step.
Well, we had 2 seniors at safety last year, Connor Baxley and Robert Gale. Both graduated, and we've got a young man, Connor Bierman, who's going into his 3rd year for us from St. Louis, St. Dominic High School, and he has had a great offseason. He's slated to start for us. He'll play a little bit of our weak side safety, which we call the bandit, and then also kind of our field side safety, which we call a free safety. So he's slated to start. We're really excited about the work he's put in. We anticipate he's going to play well. Joe Schaefer will be the other starting safety that'll replace, Baxley and Robert, and he's from Jeff City. He's been with us. I think this is his 3rd or 4th season, and kind of always been a rotational sub-package kind of DB. He's gotten a lot faster. He really worked on his long speed and his quickness over the offseason, and he's playing very, very fast and playing good football. So those are a couple guys they'll add in with those transfer DBs that I just mentioned. We've got a young, talented freshman corner from Chicago, James Franklin, that'll play a role for us. He's had a great camp. Very, very talented. So he'll definitely get to play as well, there in the secondary. I'm trying to think other new names. We've got a young man named Bryant Poole. Will be somebody to look out for from DeSmet High School in St. Louis. Kind of brought him in as an undersized linebacker. Jackson Patterson, as you remember, was one of our portal losses last year, first-team All-Leaguer. So we moved Bryant from an interior backer to kind of that hybrid nickel outside linebacker position that we play in our 4-2-5, and he's very, very athletic, very instinctive, and we anticipate big things from him as well. So I think those are on the back end. Those are some of the new names, that you'll definitely see. And on the defensive line, Alex Medina, who played a good role for us last year, he'll play even a bigger role this season as one of our defensive ends. Elijah Jackman from Columbia, Missouri, he's going to play quite a bit as an edge and an interior linebacker for us. So he should have a good role and a good season for us. And then on the interior, we got Ben Nictula a year ago from Louisiana High School. Has probably gained 25 pounds of weight. Unbelievable work ethic. Did everything we needed him to do. He was a 240-pound kid out of high school. He's walking around closer to 265 right now, playing really, really good football. Slated to start for us as one of our defensive tackles in there with Gavin, and has just been so coachable and so fun to work with. And he'll be a surprise. He's gonna surprise some people. He's had a great offseason.
For you guys right now, how much of a challenge is it to put together a true 2 deep? And is that a good problem to have?
I think every year you get more depth at certain positions than others. When you're talking Division II football, we try and get guys that can play multiple positions. Like I mentioned, Elijah Jackman from Columbia, we recruited him as an inside linebacker. He's such a good team player. He's now learned he can play defensive end for us. He can kind of play in hybrid outside linebacker safety overhang in some of our sub packages. He plays in true middle linebacker for us in some sub packages. So the guys that can learn and plug and play in multiple positions, that's how you develop your depth. So when, if somebody does go down or somebody gets tired, you can get your next best player, and just a guy that can plug and play at multiple positions. And we got a lot of guys that are really smart football players that have learned multiple positions, and that's kind of how you add and build your depth at this level.
It's excellent. And I would be remiss not to ask, we barely hit on it earlier, but just talk a little bit about the 3rd phase. Talk about special teams a little bit, returning some returners. What's going on in the special teams phase?
We've got a lot back. Diego Perez was a freshman kicker last year, and we were struggling a little bit, if you remember, with some of our procedural stuff, with some of our field goal units. So we ended up bringing him in, I think maybe at the end of the Butler game, but certainly the game after that, and he became our place kicker. Had a really good freshman season. He's had a great offseason, and he'll probably do our kickoffs and our PATs and field. He'll definitely be our place kicker this year, and I imagine he'll start at least doing kickoffs. We signed a freshman from Illinois, Gavin Christ, who's got a really big leg on him. So he's pushing, in that kickoff room as well. That's kind of dead even, so we'll probably let him get some kicks as well. So we got 2 really good kickers on roster. Old Gessert, he's, gosh, I don't know how long Mason's been on this team. Feels like forever.
It feels like forever.
He's our 5th year. Sorry, Mason, but 5th year. starting a 4-year punter for us. I think his 5th year in the program. So obviously he's been through some wars and knows what it is. And then Rob LeMaster was a senior long snapper. So Whit Tatum is who we recruited to replace him. And Whit's done fantastic. So he'll step in and be the new long snapper. So returner wise, I think Jalen Kent will be the first punt returner. Kind of finished last year for us. Had a good solid year. And another one of those guys that's just been stacking great days, through the offseason. So excited about what he can bring as a punt returner. And then Luke Allen will also get a chance back there. It was going to be Luke's job last year, and he tweaked a knee. And then so Jalen ended up doing it earlier in the season. And then when Luke got back, they kind of split time a little bit. And we'll probably use both of them again as punt returners. And kick returners a little bit more up in the air. We're still even sorting through that as we speak. You've got the 2 running backs who are excellent kick returners in Pulliam and Madden. But with those guys kind of moving into new full-time roles on offense, we're trying to hopefully find maybe a new face or two that could step in and take those touches off their plate and get a fresher, body back there returning kicks. We got a lot of candidates. We'll end up being good at that position too.
Very good, Coach. Since the last time we spoke, kind of taking a different avenue. Since the last time we spoke, you were in full. Last time we spoke on this program, you were in full off-season mode, in recruiting mode, and stuff like that. As you've gotten more and more used to it, and I guess the entire NCAA has gotten more and more used to it, what is the transfer portal really actually like? Obviously, it's cost us, but it's benefit us a little bit at the same time. And just how has your trail gone in this offseason since the end of last year?
Well, I think up until this year for Division II, there hasn't been any transfer portal window. So that's been probably the harder part. It hasn't hurt Truman as much, but when guys can jump into the portal at any time, it kind of makes your roster a revolving door. And now we're going to have a winter portal window, and I couldn't tell you exactly the dates, but it's going to open sometime as soon as the season ends, late fall, early winter, and then it's going to close sometime before the second semester. I think that's going to help, at least from a roster management standpoint, of knowing who's in and who's out, who's coming back and who's with you, and then allow you a little, I guess, a little better idea of what you're looking for, so it's not just one in, one out. And we've been fortunate. Our retention, compared to a lot of programs, we don't have anything to complain about. We've been able to hold on to a lot of players, and the players we have lost have been D1 players. They've gotten Division I scholarships, small NIL packages, all the stuff that you would want somebody that you've invested in to have those kinds of opportunities. So far, it's been a fairly positive experience, at least for the Bulldogs.
That's a very good point. For the most part, you believe that your guys who have left the program, who have transferred, you're happy for them.
Yeah.
They've gotten opportunities that they deserve to get, you think?
Yep, absolutely. It's been a positive in those kids' life. And, if you're thinking about trying to take next steps, and play even beyond that, that it makes sense for some of those guys. And so far, like I said, the kids that have made the jump, they've been legitimately Division I caliber players, and they've gotten those opportunities. So, and most of our guys have had good heads on their shoulders and known if this is the right spot for them. And we haven't lost a ton to it, and we've gained a couple good players as well, on the other side, the flip side of it, so hopefully we can keep managing the portal well here over the years to come.
Well, Kellen, the last thing I would leave you with, Coach, is anything feel different entering year 3 whatsoever, or is it just business as usual?
You certainly get more comfortable. Hopefully not too comfortable, but just in terms of the expectations of going from an assistant to a head coach, you just, at some point, you got to rip that Band-Aid off, but there's really no preparation for it. You think you're ready, and then all of a sudden you're doing it, and there's so many nooks and crannies in the job that you're not aware of until you're just actually doing the job, just like any job. There's just on-the-job training, and 3 years in, hopefully we're making a few less mistakes as an organization as we were when we first started. So.
Returning GLVC Coach of the Year, Kellen Nesbitt. The Bulldogs coming off of their first NCAA playoff appearance since 1994. Coach Nesbitt, very good to have you on the program.
Great to be here.
Thank you. New friend of the program, first-year Kirksville head football coach Bruce Munden. Coach Munden, very good to have you this evening.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us. Again, anytime that we can branch out and do something like this, we definitely want to get the good PR.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for not only this program, but also for Kirksville athletics. There are a lot of people who, when this airs on Wednesday, going into a home game to begin the season on Friday, don't know much about Bruce Munden, much less what he looks like. Introduce yourself a little bit.
My name is Bruce Munden. This is my 13th year as a head coach, my 16th year in football altogether. Father of four, husband to probably one of the best teachers out there with my wife Shelby. Just an overall football program kind of guy.
Talk about some of your previous experience. This is your first stop in Missouri.
It is.
After 16 years in Oklahoma, kind of bouncing around. Just talk about that change and what kind of led you to this destination at this point in your life.
Well, the big thing is this is my first program that is not and I try to say this as nice as I can, a dumpster fire. I've been a glutton for punishment in my coaching career. I believe that taking over programs that are 0-48, 1-37, those are great ideas. Let's go do it. Let's go try. This program was the first program that I will take over that has kind of a little bit of a tradition behind it. I'm following in great footsteps behind Coach Nesbitt. So that's really what the draw was for us. A community that is bigger than your little bitty dinky town, has the stuff, but still feels like a small town community. That's been the wildest thing about this is as we're here in town, how many people we see on a regular basis. You're thinking, hey, town of 17,000, you're not going to see people very often. And I see the same people all the time. So I think that's a big thing. My background is taking over those programs that are struggling. Nathan Hale was 0-48 when we took over. Barnesdall had won 5 games in 5 years. We ended up winning 9 in 2. So I've always kind of been a glutton for punishment. I've always enjoyed the rebuild phase, but I think I'm in that point in time in my career where it'd be nice not to have to completely build it from the ground up.
I feel like every head coach at the high school level kind of has their own leadership identity. Yours is clearly kind of program builder as your identity. What goes into sort of switching course in that regard and taking on something? Kirksville had a legendary 2024 season, maybe underachieved a little bit in 2025, but all of those pieces that you're talking about are still there. How do you kind of like switch that mindset to taking on something like that?
It's still program building. The things that make programs great are the things that make building a program great. You build it from the ground up, you work your way up. Great thing is the footing is already there. Coach Nesbitt's done a great job of putting the footing, putting the foundation down that we need, just in culture and coming in and just instilling the same kind of culture that he already instilled, but putting my own little twist on it. Just little bitty different things. Coach Nez and I have had massive amounts of conversations, and he and I are very similar in how we believe programs should be built and how we believe they should be run. And so the transition's been a lot smoother. It's allowed me to get more into the X's and O's and not just the Jimmies and Joes, and making sure that our kids are where they're supposed to be.
What would you like to say as far as some of the conversations that we've had, but how would you like to state it when it comes to not only keeping Greg Nesbitt on the staff, but also kind of maintaining control of that defense and allowing you to totally focus on the offense, and how far that goes for you as a head coach in your first year?
Hey, coach is probably forgotten more about football than I've ever known. He is a defensive genius. The things he thinks about, and him and I are very philosophy-wise very similar. He does it a lot better because of his experience where he's at, working with the type of athletes he's gotten to work with. So he understands exactly what he's looking for. I've kind of had to hodgepodge things together. I may not have a nose guard that's 6 foot, 250 pounds. It's a 5'5" kid that's 160, but shoots out like a rocket. So his technique and his attention to detail is one of the biggest things that I've gathered from him on the coaching side of it. Keeping him on was probably the biggest grab we had in this transition moving into the program. Once I had an opportunity to sit down with him and say, hey, I know you don't want to be head coach, but coaching your grandson, at least for the next year, the ability to actually step back and coach and not have to do all the administrative things that come with being a head coach. I think that was something that really flashed with him. He's like, you're telling me I get to coach? I'm like, absolutely, you get to coach. I'll handle the parents. I'll handle the admin. You just do you. And year 3 in this same defense, you can see it. At the Jamboree, we gave up 1 touchdown, and it was a little mistake that we made, something that we normally don't make. And Coach Nez is on it, fixing it, and we probably won't have the same mistake again, which has allowed me to step into that offensive role and kind of bring my I guess flair, because I'm a little bit different than Coach Nez is. Coach Nez is all about control the clock, control the clock, control the clock. I'm more of let's have a show out here, and so it's been a little bit more of that. And he's gotten to do his thing, and I think he's really enjoying it. You can see it in his practices, the energy he has at practice, that he's enjoying what he's doing.
Before we talk about the Jamboree a little bit, one thing that you've said to me in the past handful of weeks, and I love this, defense wins championships, but offense sells tickets. Offense puts butts in the seats, right? And so kind of the odd couple in that regard between you and Greg Nesbitt, how that kind of clashes, but also meshes at the same time.
The thing is I really think of myself as a defensive guy. I've always thought that I had to control the ball. But because of some of the programs I've taken over, we've had to be very creative offensively just to be able to compete with some of the teams that we've competed with. I mean, last year's our top 4 teams that made the playoffs, we had the state runner-up, the state semifinalist, a 3-round team, and a 2-round team. So that was the top of our district. And so it was like a brutal beat down every single week. So we had to be creative in how we got the ball out, and because we couldn't match up front, we couldn't necessarily match up outside. We found little things that we could do. And every time it seems that I talk, I'll sit there and go, I'm a defensive guy. And I believe defense wins championships. But for some reason, someone goes, how do you do that offensively? And I'm like, well, I do this. They're like, I would have never even thought about doing that. I'm like, when you have what I have, you work with what you got. And when it worked, we stuck with it, even when we got some pieces that fit the puzzle more like a traditional offense. So what's really funny is now daily, it's his defense versus my offense, and the battles that we get to have at times. And right now, because of the learning curve for the offensive side, he wins a few more than I do. But I do get him from time to time. Every once in a while I get him from time to time, and he's over there looking and shaking his head, and he's trying to figure out what kid screwed up. And I'm sitting here going, well, I knew you were going to do this, so I did this. And I kind of like scouting my own team. So I start looking at ways that I can attack that, which will help us hopefully in the future, considering we're going to go play Hannibal, which will be basically the same defense, and give us a little bit of a step up in that direction.
Beyond the chess match that you guys have fought daily, by you guys, I mean you versus Greg Nesbitt's defense, and only really having film of a scrimmage that you had a week prior, talk a little bit about the Jamboree. The only touchdown that you guys gave up came against South Harrison. And you guys scored 4 or 5 times.
I think it was 5. I tried not to count. I really did. I really wasn't worried about it. I was more worried about whether we were moving the ball, right, and whether we were getting to our landmarks. And after watching film, we did fairly well compared to what I thought we would. I think we performed better than I thought we would. I think we gave up 1 against South Harrison. When you play a flex bone, wing T style team, when you're not prepared for it, it can definitely take a toll on the middle of your defense, and that's kind of where they got us, was right there in the middle. We weren't prepared for it, so they squirted one through. We tightened the nuts the next 8 plays, and I think we gave up 1 more first down against them. But offensively, I thought we moved the ball fairly well. We We found a way to have some big plays. We found a way to have some success. Not necessarily super flashy. We were very vanilla. Not a bunch of the motions and trades that I typically do or you'll typically see on a Friday night. We wanted to see, like, on the very bottom of my note card and my play card, it said, "Be simple, see what we know," because I didn't want to go and be all flashy and we are successful because of how we matched things up, rather than knowing we can be successful doing the basics.
And even though you played 3 littler schools in the Jamboree, I mean, teams that have had great success, as you've pointed out the past year, Putnam, the state runner-up in Class 1 from last year, Brookfield, a 9-win team from last year, and South Harrison, 7 or 8 wins, whatever they were. So 3 very strong teams who all do 3 dramatically different things.
Very, very dramatic different things, which I think that's the best part about a Jamboree, is you're going to get a look at multiple different things. I mean, it's going to be just like every other game that we play. We're going to play somebody that does something just a hair different or completely different. In Oklahoma, it was like that weekly. We'd play a spread team one week. Next thing we know, we're playing a flex bone team, and it's the quick change and pace that you have to learn and adapt to, and to do it on the fly in a 12 snap script. It definitely makes you a better coach when you get to see stuff like that. And I respect all 3 of those teams. I think all 3 of them will be really, really good again this year. PC will be very, very good. I know he talks it down, Coach Hughes. He talks down how good he is, but they're very well coached. They gave us some fits. I think we scored the next to last play of that one. It was basically a stalemate until then. We scored on the very next to last play in our little 12-play series. But yeah, those teams will all be good teams again this year. You can tell just by how physical they are and how well coached they are.
Coming into this Monday, the first time that you have your entire team back together, did you guys do anything this weekend, watch film or anything, or just everybody walks in on Monday?
Everybody walks in on Monday. Yeah, we try to give our kids the weekend off. Back in my beginning days, we were Saturday morning, stretch, lift, get a nice little run in, watch your game film, and then put it to bed. A lot of coaches have moved away from that over the last few years, and I kind of followed suit with that. Give those kids that day off because of Huddle, because of Google Classroom, because of all the things that we have available now, giving out scouting reports, putting up notes that they need to adjust to. We don't have to do it on a whiteboard anymore. So it's definitely adapted how we coach weekly. And so we got them all back in today about through 2:45 for film. And we looked over Southern Boone today. That was the biggest thing. We showed them, hey, this is what you're going to see. This is how we're going to attack it. So we kind of put our formation recognition out there.
Based on hammering that out with the hours that you've put in between the end of Friday night and these guys coming in at 2:45 this afternoon, the first time that you actually have good hard film of your teams against other teams, how has anything changed for you from a head coaching standpoint?
Oh, some of the depth charts have changed. We had some kids that performed better than we thought they would. We've had some kids that performed a lot worse than they thought they would. But we tell our kids that it's a weekly fight for jobs anyway. If I think that's the one advantage to having the number that we have, and the programs that are really successful that have these numbers, they compete every day. And when you compete every day, you make each other better. And there's going to be days that a kid just outworks you one week and you lose your job for a week. It doesn't mean you're a bad player. It just means you're going to have to work harder the next week. And I think that's really what this Jamboree and what these last 2 weeks have kind of been. It's been a nonstop battle for who's going to play what and where, who's going to give us the best chance to win.
Talk a little bit about your personnel on the offensive side. You bring back a very experienced senior quarterback, a couple of kids who you've referred to as red zone nightmares. What this offense is going to look like, kind of what your brand is.
I don't know that I necessarily have a brand. I know that we're scary. Blake Nesbitt is a matchup nightmare, and it doesn't matter where we line him up. If you guard him with a linebacker, he's going to outrun the linebacker. If you guard him with a corner, he's bigger than a corner. He's physical at the point of attack. It's tough. I think he had 2 touchdowns himself out of the ones we scored, and he makes it look like it's easy. It's nice to have an athlete like that. I don't know that I've ever gotten to coach one like that. Joel's been exactly what you want from a quarterback. I think the only thing I could yell at him for is throw the dang RPO every once in a while. Just throw it everyone. And I know you want to let the ball go. Throw that RPO out there. Keep those guys honest. But he's been a point guard in the true sense of the meaning. He gets us where we need to be, and he outlines everybody where their jobs are. So it makes life really easy when you have a veteran. But again, the backup with that part is next year when he's gone, who's stepping in his role. So I'm hoping these younger guys are watching his leadership and doing that stuff, because Joel is a really, really good leader for even kill. And so we got, I think we're probably 4 deep at receiver that can give us significant minutes. We're 3 to 4 deep at running back. Offensive line, we're 8 deep, that I think guys that we can truly trust to go out there. Having that kind of depth is something you can't always have as a coach, and to have it, I think it makes us a little bit ahead of where we thought we would be at this point in time this year.
In your coaching career, have you ever not only had a solidified offensive line that's ready to go week 1, but also had backups for pretty much any position that needs plug and play?
No, I've had a solidified offensive line one time, and we returned almost every starter from the year before that averaged almost 400 yards a game. And injuries decimated us, and we were super young behind them, that they weren't ready to play. So not having those backups was definitely a telling fact in how successful we were that year. Still a 500 team, but we could have easily been a 8-9 game team, and you can find out how well you can really do if you truly look at how good your offensive line is, because I believe the offense and defensive lines are the true determiner on how good an offense or a defense can be, because it's all one right there.
You think that any given time you have 3 guys who could step into any role should, God forbid, injury befall you or anything like that?
Yeah. So it may be moving some pieces, depending on what the injury was. We got Brandon Greathouse probably could start every position on the offensive line except maybe center. And even I've never seen him snap. He may be able to even do that. So depending on what happened, where he's a piece that we could move to give a guy who would be our next best guy an opportunity to get in. And that is one of those great things, is having a guy with that kind of versatility. Shane Jones, I think, could anchor either side of tackle. So heaven forbid something happened to Greathouse, he could move over to the left. We could move in a new right tackle and never miss a beat. It'd still be, it would take a half a step back, but it wouldn't be, oh, it's the end of the world now. I think that is the one advantage that we have offensive line wise. Now, how good is our offensive line? We'll find out Friday, but I think we're in the right direction. When you lose pieces like we've lost the last 2 years here, 2 D1 kids and a whole bunch of guys that started a whole bunch of games, we knew we were going to be young. We knew this was where we were going to have to start the rebuild. I think our skill kids are ahead of pace. Our line is probably just a hair behind pace, but it's definitely where we're going to have an opportunity to be successful.
Before we talk a little bit about Southern Boone, I know you guys started hitting on that stuff today at practice. Just want to ask you, as a head coach entering a new position, how pivotal it is for you to have your first 3 games at home. Walking into Southern Boone Friday night at 7, immediately followed by next week Chillicothe, and then week 3 Savannah. Just your first 3 games being at home, it'll make for a long slate later on in the season, but just setting the tempo with those 3 early on.
I actually would prefer to be on the road.
Really?
And that goes back to the old days, because it's all the things that you have to think about at home is like, oh, all our fans are here. Oh, so if we disappoint something. So sometimes it's okay to be on the road. But I think our slate, especially our first 2 games, I think they're coin flips. So it gives us an opportunity to start this year off strong if we do what we're supposed to as a team. Those 2 will help us give us a measuring stick of where we're going to be as we walk into Savannah. Savannah's going to be a really, really good team, top 10 probably. And then we travel to Hannibal, another top 10 team. I truly think that not having to travel until we get to Hannibal will keep us a little bit fresher, because, again, anytime you travel, those long nights eventually take a toll on you. We'll just have to see how much of a toll it takes later on in the year.
The beautiful thing about Missouri, I don't know how it works in Oklahoma. Everybody enters a district at the end of the season, and so that target marker is playing your best football in week 9 and moving forward. Between now and that week 9 game, what do you want to see? What do you want to see in these opening couple of weeks, and then moving forward, what is your ideal trajectory for this 2026 Kirksville football season?
Early, we want to see that we're playing clean football. If you can prevent penalties, if you can prevent hurting yourself, you always give yourself a chance to win. So going into these first 2 weeks, we really, really want to try to play clean football. As the year goes on, we'd like to be able to play a little bit faster, play with a little more tempo. Hopefully, when we get into that, again, we end the season with Festus on a Saturday. That's going to be a tough game. But hopefully by that time, when we're in week 6, 7, and 8, we're kind of on a roll, and we know what our identity is, because that's still going to be the biggest part right now. We don't know exactly who we are, but we know what we can do decently well. We're kind of waiting to see, hey, are we going to be one of these more smash mouth, grind you out teams that uses the passing game to open up the run? Or are we going to be more of a pass game to help open up the run? So I think that's where we're at right now, is we're trying to figure out exactly what our identity is going to be. With the personnel we have, I don't think there's a wrong answer for us yet, but we once we create that identity, solidifying it and just rolling and letting us be who we are. Don't try to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Identity-wise, one thing that I've really liked that you've said over the past handful of weeks is there's going to be one time, at least once throughout the course of this season, where a play on special teams is the outcome of a game. It all starts for you guys with a very experienced kicker who can hit from wherever, and then what else are you thinking when you're thinking of that there's going to be some time somewhere along the way that a special teams impacts a game? What's going through your head?
Stealing possessions, or manufacturing possessions. One thing Coach Nesbitt's done, and what he's done in the past that we've adopted, is his aggressiveness on the punt team. He's very well known for how many punts he can block. And anytime you can steal a possession on your side of the field, or keep them from pinning you somewhere else, you make your job a little bit easier. And Beckett, he's going to be a guy that is going to be a weapon. He's our punter and kicker this year. It's the first time he's had to punt, but he's done a really, really good job, and he's taken to it like a fish. So he's a weapon for us because he has the ability to kick the ball. He has the ability to kick the ball where he wants to. He's going to be a tough one to replace next year, and we've kind of already had this discussion. Who are we looking at to replace him next year? Because I don't know that we have an answer, and that for that reason, he's very, very special. But I believe kickoff return, kickoff, punt block, and return, all of those 4 things will, if you can steal an extra possession on kickoff, on an onside or a pooch kick, a game block a punt and get 2 extra possessions. If you can be 2 extra possessions for the year, you've got a chance to be something special.
Just before I let you go, Coach, what are some of the things as we're approaching week 1? What are some of those conversations in the locker room that you're having with your guys? What are some of those conversations you're having with your fellow coaches, your coaching staff, just all those kind of things?
Well, we kind of have a theme of the week every week. Last week was attitude and how we play and how we come with an attitude, how we react to things, all those things. We're very particular and having a kind of a theme for what's happening for the week. This week, our theme is toughness, because I think to be a good football team, you have to be tough, not necessarily just physically, but mentally. And that's what we said. We kind of had that talk right at the end of practice today, that toughness, you're going to get banged up, you're going to get bruised, you're going to hurt. But you're not only going to hurt out here, you're going to be hurting in life at some point in time. The toughness that you develop out here will be the toughness that helps you drag you through those things, just like in a football game. So football for me teaches life lessons, and I'm hoping that I'm partaking some of that to our young men as we go through this season.
To that point, anything that changes expectations-wise as the school year begins? Anything, especially academically, that you're hitting on with these guys now that school's underway?
The academics is one of our core pillars. We are student athletes. Student comes first. I will be checking their grades on a regular basis. I will be with my thumb. I've always been an academics guy. I believe that if you're going to be successful outside of our 4 walls that we have, or how many walls we have in our school nowadays, to be successful out there, you have to be successful in our 4 walls. So we're pushing, and we've got kids that have aspirations of playing at the next level, whether it's D1, D2, D3. We have kids that want to play, and they understand, especially this grouping understands that the grades and the attendance and their discipline, all of that ties into what a coach is going to think about them. And I've told kids since I started coaching, I'll never lie to a coach about you just to get you recruited, because eventually I'm going to have a kid that I really want to go there. And if I've lied to him once, he's not going to believe me the next time. So we preach that we're student athletes and we're student first.
I appreciate it greatly, Coach. As we approach Friday's 7 p.m. kickoff, is there anything in particular about Southern Boone that you would like to say without giving too much away, type thing?
Well, they've got 2 players that have transferred in from Rock Hill that are very, very good players. I think they will be the difference in what they could have been this year and what they're going to be this year. But again, with transfers, you still have to worry about how long it takes them to get used to what the system is. That's kind of what we're betting on early in the year. Quarterback's really, really good. Running back's really, really good. And when you pull 2 guys out of 6A or Class 6 and move them to Class 4, they're going to be a little bit different. They're going to be used to a little bit different competition. So you kind of have to expect that they're going to give you everything they got. So our game plan for this week is to try to maintain and control those 2 individuals. And if we can do that, keep the quarterback quiet, keep the running back quiet, we have a really good chance of walking out with the win.
I'm assuming that the footage that you have of them is also very vanilla.
Yes, but we're lucky enough that we've done some scouting, and we've gotten some intel that we hope to that plays a big part in what we do over the next couple of days.
Coach Bruce Munden, new friend of the program, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Kirksville Tigers open play with Southern Boone, 7 p.m. at Spainhauer Field. Coach, we appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for what we will, for now, be calling the 2nd season of Raining Cats and Dogs. I didn't really realize this until we went back into it. We didn't start recording this thing until the end of October of last year, and here we are at the end of August, so we've gotten a little bit of leg up before these seasons have even begun. Anyway, as always, I've been your host, Henry Jansen, sports writer for the Kirksville Daily Express. Thank you again. Go Tigers, go Bulldogs.